Okay, welcome to the session in the new year, Information Extraction. My name is Jennifer Nist and I'm going to present you the track question answering track. Track is a shortcut for the text retrieval conference, and it's a workshop series that is repeated annually since 1992 till today, and it takes every 1 year every time. The workshop provides the infrastructure for information retrieval technology. They provide test collections and an open forum to exchange ideas and problems between the participants and the coordinators. The track is sponsored by the National Institute of Standards and Technologies and the US Department of Defense. And the goals of track are to encourage research and in information retrieval, and to increase communication among industry, academia, and government. I wanted to give you a short introduction to document retrieval. You need a document collection that is indexed, so the document retrieval system can find relevant documents to user stories. And these documents needed to be evaluated and to be sorted according to relevance, that the questioner can have the top documents to find the best answer, to find the answer to the question. Okay, a track circle, I said it, it's always the duration is always 1 year, and at the beginning the NICE, a program committee of persons from industry, government, and academia, provide a test set of documents, and the participants run their newly implemented retrieval systems on the data, on the documents, and they return a list of top-ranked documents back to NICE. And the documents list were judged for correctness, and they were evaluated. And in the end, a workshop is held so that the participants can share their experiences and get the results of the other groups and the other participants. Information retrieval is a large field, so the track focuses on particular sub-problems of information retrieval, and they were always worked in different tracks. So a workshop consists of a set of tracks. You will see on the next slide. Here I have an example of tracks. You can see here a timeline from 1992 to 2007, and you can see in which year which tracks were held. You can see in 2007 it was a blog track and a spam track. And I will tell you something about the pink here, the question and answering track. It was held from 1999 to 2007. Yes, don't be confused. At the beginning they were called track 8 in 1999 and track 9 in 2000, and the following names were track 2001 and so on. And the difference between most of the other tracks was that the other tracks traditionally focused on returning a ranked list of documents, but for the question answering system, they wanted to get the answer themselves, not lists. So for a question, for example, when was Beethoven born? A possible answer could be Ludwig van Beethoven was born on December 16th in 1770. And the assumption was that users would prefer to be given the answer rather than find the answers themselves in a document. Here I gave you a short overview what kind of groups participated in the question answering track. There are some universities like University of Alberta and University of Iowa, or some big companies like Microsoft, Sun, or Xerox. All the people need to work with the same materials, so the NICE provided in the first years a various set of news articles from big magazines like the Wall Street Journal or the Los Angeles Times. And in the following years, they created corpus of English news text, the Acquaint corpus, with approximately 3 gigabytes of text, also from big newspapers like the New York Times News Service, the Associated Press World Stream News Service, and the Xinhua News Service. In the year 2007, they updated these articles to get some newer documents, and for the last year, they also added the Block 06 corpus with more than 100,000 RSS and Atom feeds. Yes. Here you can see an example of a document collection. It's an XML format with a doc ID. Here you can see it's from the Agence France Presse. It's in English, and this is the document ID. It always has a headline, a date line, and of course the text. And as a convenience for the question answering track participants, NICE made available rankings of the top documents per questions. So they used the question as the query, and the price document retrieval system gave back the top 1,000 or top 200 documents per this question. So the participants they could use this ranked list and they didn't have to implement document retrieval. They could use these lists instead of it. Here you can see a short example from the top 5 of the question 216. In all 5 cases, it's the article from the New York Times in English, and of course the first in this from these top 5 has the best relevance for the question and in decreasing order. Now the questions themselves. At the beginning, the NICE team provided them or created them especially for the track, and the participants did it too. But the questions were too easy because they were often back formulations from articles from the text. So in the next years, they used real questions from search logs like MSN Search or AskJuice or AOL. And these raw logs, of course, not everything was a question, so they were filtered. And they're filtered when they had a question word or when they begin with a model or the verb to be. And of course, it was a good indicator if the sentence ended with a question mark. So the NICE team sometimes fixed the spelling, the punctuation, and the grammar that these questions were of good use. Yeah, the questions in the first 2 years, in 1999 and 2000, it was guaranteed that the participants or their systems could find an answer to these questions in their document collection. But in the following years, from 2001 to 2007, it wasn't guaranteed that the systems were able to find an answer in the document collection. They had especially made questions where they knew that there was no answer to be found in the collection, and that was of course to make the task harder for the systems. Each question can be of a different type. It can be a factoid question, a list, a definition, or another type, and I will explain them to you in the following slides. And like the document collection, the questions were in XML format. The factoid questions were fact-based, and they wanted to get a short answer. So here you can see an example of an original question in XML format. They have a number and a description, and of course the question. In this case, it's when did the story of Romeo and Juliet take place? And as you can imagine, the answer is a date. And of course, that is a short answer. So now the list questions, they are basically the same like factoid questions, but it's just like asking a factoring question multiple times. So the system needed to assemble a set of instances for the answer. And the hard thing is that the information for the question, for list question, can be located in multiple documents. It can be that multiple instances for the question is located in a single document, or that the same instance is repeated in multiple documents. So the systems had to find the duplicates and of course not to return them every time they find it. In the first year where the list questions were used in 2002, the questions had a specified number of instances. A question could be like list 13 centuries that export lobster. But in the following years, the questions had no target number of instances, so a question could be list the names of chewing gums, and so the systems had no idea how long they had to search. They had to search so long they can find an answer, and not to stop when they had 13 centuries or 13 names of chewing gums. Here also a short example of the list questions, and as you see, it's the same like the factoid questions. It's just another question in the description, and you see there's no development in the format until 2003. The definition questions are a little bit harder to answer because they always have a target. So a definition question can be about a person, like who is John Bon Jovi, or about an organization, like who are the founders of Ben & Jerry's. Or it can be a question about a thing, like what kind of fruit is an avocado, or an event, like when did the Sundance Festival, or where did it take place? Where did the Sundance Festival take place? And to make it more easy to answer these questions, it's important to know what kind of questioner asked this question. So you have to answer a question differently if a child asks the question or if an adult asks this question. So the NICE set a task scenario for the questioner, and they said the questioner is an adult native speaker, an average reader of US newspaper, and he is looking for more information about the target. And of course he has some background knowledge. Since 2004 to 2007, the NICE didn't give just a list of questions. They grouped the questions in question series, and it wasn't just one question series. It was a set of question series, and each question series had a target, and factoid, list, and a final other question that were referring to this target. You will see on the next slide. And the target can be a person, an organization, a thing, or an event. And this one and every question series was meant to be an abstraction of an information dialogue. Here you have an example of a question series. You have here a target, in this case it's the band Nirvana, and some following questions, factoid and list questions, and the questions in this, like who is the lead singer, the musician in Nirvana, always refer to the target. Like this list question, who are the band members, you wouldn't know what band is meant here if you wouldn't know that all questions refer to this target. So, and in the end, there is another question, and as you see, there is no question because the other question asks for additional information. So the systems should return at this point information that was not covered by the previous questions, like who are the band members. That shouldn't be repeated at the end. So the other question is interpreted in this sentence. Tell me other interesting things about this target I don't know enough to ask directly. And as you can imagine, this is a hard challenge for systems. And yes, and that's the reason why it's added just since 2004. So how do the participants have to respond to a question? They always have to respond a pair, a document ID followed by an answer string, and the document ID is the document that supports the answer, like verification the answer, and the shape of the answer string developed over the years. And from 1999 to 2001, it was allowed to return small snippets of text that contained the answer, limited to 50 or 250 bytes. And they were allowed to return a ranked list of up to 5 document ID answer string pairs per question. So it was even possible to respond 5 whole different answers to one question. But of course, the challenge needs to be harder over the years. So since 2002 to 2007, it wasn't allowed to return snippets of text. They wanted to get exact answers and just one pair, one document ID answer string per question. And you may remember that it wasn't guaranteed that an answer and question have an answer in the document collection. That's the reason why why the nil string was also a possible response, because when the system believes that there is no correct answer in the document collection, the response, of course, can't be a document ID answer string pair, so the system should respond a nil string. The responses changed over the years, and so did the judgment of the responses. At the beginning, it was snippets of text, so the text could contain or it couldn't, or it contains the answer or it didn't. So they were judged as correct or incorrect if the answer is right or wrong. But they made the judgment harder too. So since 2000, they separated between a correct answer and an unsupported answer. So even if the answer is correct, it's a different if the document ID is a document that supports the answer or is just any document. And since 2002, where no text snippets were allowed anymore, but exact answers, it can be that the response is a right answer, but it's not, and it is supported by the document ID, but maybe the string contains more than just the answer or is missing bits. So it's right, but a not exact response. And in the year 2006, they judged a correct supported answer different if it wasn't the most up-to-date answer. So if the question is, who is the President of America? And the answer or the response is Bill Clinton, it was maybe a locally correct answer if there is any document in the document collection who says that the president is Barack Obama. So Barack Obama would be a globally correct answer because it's the most up-to-date answer in the document collection, but Bill Clinton, who is also right, could only be a locally correct answer. Here you can see an example question and their judgments. The question is, what river in the US is known as the Big Muddy? In 2001, these 3 answer strings were correct. They had a limitation of 50 bytes. So the Mississippi is correct, or known as Big Muddy, the Mississippi is the longest, or Southeast Mississippi, Mark Twain, officials begun. So you see in all 3 strings, the right answer is containing the Mississippi and here and here and here. But you can also see that the quality of the answer strings is very different. So since 2002, here's an example for the same question. There were exact answers needed. So the correct and exact answers could be Mississippi or the Mississippi River. But here's an example for a not exact answer. It's like 2,348 miles Mississippi, because it contains too much information. And this is also not correct, Mississippi, because it has too less information to be correct or to be exact. Okay, now I wanted to give you a short overview about the years and what challenges the systems had over the years. So in the beginning, track 8 and 9, so the years 1999 and 2000, the questions were factoid questions, and it was guaranteed that the answer is contained in the document collection. And as a response, it was allowed to give up to 5 document ID answer string pairs per question. And these answer strings can be small snippets of text, limited to 50 or 250 bytes. So the challenges for the question answering system was, of course, at the beginning to find the correct answer in the document collection and to limit the answer to 50 or 250 bytes. And the result was that in the track 8 and 9, 70 to 65% of the questions were asked. So the challenge was hard enough to answer, but not too easy. In the following 3 years, in track 2001, 2, and 3, all the questions were factoid questions or list questions, and since 2003 they also had definition questions. And they gave no guarantee that the systems can find an answer for factoid and list questions in the document collection. The response was restricted to only 1 response per question, and it shall be a document ID answer string or the string nil if the system believes that there is no correct answer in the document collection, and exact answers as answer string instead of text snippets. So the new challenges for the question answering system was to recognize that no answer exists, because a user would either have no answer than a wrong answer. And the challenge for the list question is to assemble an answer from information located in multiple documents and to detect the duplicates. And of course, it was a challenge to return exact answers instead of text snippets. Here I have a short example, and you see the only difference is that there is a type included, factoid, definition, and list question, so that the systems can easily see what kind of type the question is. In track 2004, 5, and 6, they used a set of question series, and since 2006 they set the time frame to the most up-to-date question in the document collection. So that's the point where locally correct and globally correct judgments were used. You may remember. So if the question is who's the president of America, the time frame would be, give me the answer of the last president you can find in the document collection. So the time frame should always be the newest date you can give. So the challenges for the question answering systems were of course the other questions, because the other questions existed in the question series, and it's hard for the systems to not repeat the information that is already covered by earlier questions and to give more information that is not directly asked. The challenge for the time frame is, of course, to give the most up-to-date answers and not to stop if you get an answer. And it was restricted for the question series to process the series independently from another. and to process an individual series in question order. So they tried to make the question answering more real. So if there is a user on a computer and asks something about a target, you would ask some questions in line, and the system cannot look ahead and cannot use an earlier, later information to an earlier question, but can use the information from an earlier question to answer to a later question. That's the reason for the question order. And in the last year, in track 2007, they added the block 06 corpus, and the new challenges for the question answering system was to handle the language that is not well formed, like in the newspapers, and to discourse structures that are more informal and less reliable than Newswire. Okay, now if you want to see or I want to read anything about this, what I've said earlier, you can look it on the track site. It's nearly all my information from the site, and here are the sources from the JPEGs. So thank you for listening. Yeah.
So the questions that you talked about seem to be ones about which we can imagine a consensus answer. But what about questions for which there won't be a consensus answer, and for which different documents might disagree? Is this a problem being handled within track at all? For instance, let's say the question was, is Obama a socialist? And you can imagine there are plenty of documents saying yes and plenty saying no. And if it was purely a recency heuristic, then your answer would change on an hourly basis.
Okay, I think the NICE committee would not use such questions because of your reasons, because it's not clearly to answer in which direction you can answer this question, because it's a problem for the judges. So they, I think they wouldn't ask these kind of questions. They ask questions where you can find an answer, or if there is an answer in the document collection, then it's right.
If we're willing to analyze blogs, then it could easily be the case that even for consensus questions there is discrepant information. Like maybe there's a blog that just lists facts that are wrong. In this case, what do you do?
That's that's need to so your system would find the answer. Maybe it doesn't know if it's right or wrong, so it would just respond it as the correct answer. And if it's really correct, would judge the NICE committee. So if they find the answer in the document collection, they have to say it's right because it stands there. It's written there. So, yes.
But it's really a different research area now. I mean, there's a lot of constitutions also on opinion. It's called opinion question answering or something like this. Okay. And then the task is to assemble all the different opinions and find out how to support this for this opinion or that opinion.
Sometimes facts are even so.
No, who's the president of the United States? Except for some.
Is Hong Kong, independent, autonomous nation? Or there are facts that people disagree about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's a pretty sharp dividing line, right, between facts and opinion. But the opinion stuff is a big area here. Big home area.
Any other questions? Anything I shall repeat once more?
So the tasks got harder and harder. So,
yes.
And how well did the systems were the systems able to solve the task? I mean, was it too hard at one point for the systems to find correct answers, or were the systems performing okay?
That depended on the question type. So, of course, the 250 bytes limitation was easier to respond to than the 50 bytes limitation. Also, the definition questions were harder to answer because they had a special target, and it's easier to ask to respond to a factoid question. These are the informations I got, and of course the other questions were harder to answer because there are actually no questions, but just a need of information for more information. And they also find out, but I couldn't get the reason, that event targets were harder to answer than persons targeted. But organization and what's the other thing? Things were in the same part. The same.
So what was the precision of the first systems at the beginning and in the end? Do you have an idea?
The precision?
Yeah, how many the best systems, usually you measure something like precision, how many questions are correct? And then there's always the best system. So how did the best system score in the beginning?
That always depends on the scoring. So they tried at the beginning to made more weight on the easier questions so that the score is a little bit higher and to motivate the participants. And in the end, they weighted all the three question types the same, but the scores was up to it ranges between 0 and 1, and the best scores was something like 0.7 or 0.6 or something. But I have no slide to verify this here. I'm sorry. But I can explain how they scored it if you want to know.
But
So-
the development over time, do you have any idea on your research?
It was different. In the last year, it was better than in the years before. What they were surprised about because they thought that the block questions would make it harder, but the results were better. So in the beginning, I would think the line of the best scores was a bit higher, and then it was lower until 2006, and then it was more up. But I have no slide, I'm sorry. No.
Other questions? Okay, then thank you again.